to Ideas with Impact podcast. Today, I'm super excited to welcome Maxime Lavoie. He is an expert in nutrition and holistic health, as well as he's a chiropractor. He has a huge passion for empowering individuals on their wellness journey, and he emphasizes the importance of understanding the root cause of health issue and fostering the strong partnership between patient and participant. So join us today, diving into insightful discussion all about nutrition, health strategies, and his transformative 8-week wellness program. Welcome, Maxim. How are you
Thank you.
today?
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm great. Thank you.
Thank you. Got a little nervous there for a little bit, but
It's all good. I totally get that. Yeah.
that's
Thanks for the
okay.
introduction. Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome. So tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you get into the health and wellness? And yeah, if you can just share a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, for sure. So first and foremost, as you said, I'm a chiropractor. So I did my Doctor of Chiropractic degree in University of Trois-Rivières already in 2012. So I'm going on 13 years of official practice. And throughout the years, my practice, ever since even when I was a student, I had a high interest into holistic health, nutrition.
Mhm.
Um, all things nutrition, really. Like it started like with the passion of going to the gym and working out and like all the little supplements back then it was a little world. And yeah, throughout my chiropractic degree, we get some nutrition courses which I was very interested in, some biochemistry, physiology. So but in school it was very academic and also like a very theory oriented. And when I got into practice and even like internship in the university, I could see some patterns in some patients, like some recurring things, especially like chronic issues, chronic pain, or other chronic symptoms in their health. And with this knowledge that I had gained, yes, with university, but having like a side passion with nutrition and human physiology, I found all these courses as well with like applied kinesiology, which is a big toolbox that I use, like which uses basically lots of muscle testing, indicator testing, lots of functional neurology mixed with lots of traditional Chinese medicine, so the acupuncture meridians and all the systems related and nutrition and emotions as well. So I could start to see, like, even though I was still like an intern and I couldn't like go full on towards all these directions, have an interest into witnessing how in chronic conditions there's something like deeper going on, so at
Mhm.
play. And when I got into practice, that my first criteria to choose a place where I could practice was clinics that would have this mind, like the holistic mindset and the way of treating patients, and had access to as well like a whole inventory of supplements and nutrition stuff, and yeah, tools to have this kind of like a technique and way of addressing the patients and their um, globality. So here I am a few years later, as you mentioned. I now have also like a coaching program, a holistic health coaching program, which birthed a few weeks ago already. I'm doing my first
Congratulations.
cohort.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And
Yeah.
it was really birthed out of like, after all these years, my practice is kind of like overflowing and I cannot see everyone. And like the one-on-one is great. Like this is kind of like a primary contact and very privileged to have that, but also like I couldn't help everyone, like as many people as I wished I could, and some people could not just get to see me either physically or
Mhm.
financially or whatever the reason. This is why I started a podcast already as well
Mhm.
3 years ago or so. And out of the need to kind of like broaden horizons of people of what's possible into health, whether it's from their chronic pain, but just holistic health in general.
Mhm.
Um, my wife's a medical doctor, and the I would say with a more like holistic viewpoint of medicine and health as well.
Mhm.
So we regularly have some discussions, and we're like, okay, what if everybody knew that, like the basics? Basically, it always comes down to the basics. It can get very tricky and fancy and all these little
Mhm.
tweaks here and there, but it goes back to like sleep, food, nutrition, emotions, stress management, hydration, dot dot dot, and then you get the supplements and all these other like more like fancy or like specialized modalities. But overall, that's what I found, and what I find is we have this abundance of information out there now, like on social media and YouTube, and just searching ChatGPT, name your tool. And but the thing is, with the putting things into action or the accountability and like how to make sense of what applies to me or to the patient or to the client, and in what order is this really a priority to, like, I don't know, take XYZ supplement, or should I go back to the basics? If so, what basic is my weaker link, I would say. So that's the art of having like a good practitioner, a skilled practitioner to guide you through that. But yeah, that would be it, like in a nutshell, where I'm at right now and how I got there.
Well, that must be very interesting to have your wife in the medical system and then having these discussions, because I'm originally from Poland. So I grew up with a doctor knowing the functional medicine as well as knowing a holistic practice. So it was all combined together. Where I came to Canada in 1990s, we've seen a Polish doctor for quite some time, and then suddenly I'm not sure where the switch was in him. So like originally he would help us, oh, don't take these prescriptions. He goes, use this other modality to heal yourself. Yet somewhere, somehow, maybe 10 years later, he switched. So it was kind of like, no more time for you, even though he knew exactly what he wanted. Yeah, here's your prescription, we're done, see you later, kind of thing. And I lost that interest for him to be my doctor. So I'm kind of curious about your conversations that you have with your partner on a daily basis when you have these discussions,
Yeah. Yeah, we do have many discussions, but we try to like prioritize as well. With a 3-year-old now, like we have a 3-year-old son, so we try not to talk too much about work, but still like all these conversations, because we have like some common grounds. Like she still is a medical doctor, and I'm still a chiropractor. Like these we're like in different spectrums of seeing patients and like for different motives, but still, and with different tools, of course.
Right.
But the recurring themes are like, if people knew this like in the first place, or had learned this and put that into practice in their lives, they wouldn't need us in the first place. That's like the basics, of course. And these little things sometimes, like, people wait for a while to see me. That have like this waiting list, and they've seen typically other practitioners, other chiropractors, physios, osteos, medical doctors, and whatnot. And then they want to kind of like, from word of mouth, have another viewpoint or opinion, from a broader like lens, I would say. And then I'm like going back to like the first visit. I got to know a lot about their history and their health, and I asked them like some more deeper questions, but also some very basic questions. And I go like, for example, what have you eaten for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Like just 3 meals. And most times already, like, I know, like, okay, we got to go back to this, like compounded over days, weeks, months, years. This might be like the main thing why you're experiencing this recurring chronic pain, for example.
Right.
Chronic, and on top of that, because like as a chiropractor, my scope is like in Quebec, the neuromusculoskeletal issues. So typically they come either like for chronic symptoms, i.e. pain, or other stuff that hurts. And basically it's okay. On top of that, like, they have chronic pain, but they also have mild depression or low energy or exhaustions for years. Like lack of energy is a recurring theme as well. For women, it might be like dysmenorrhea, so basically their menstrual cycle is off, or like they have PMS and like mood swings and all these things. For men, it could be just low sex drive, libido, or just general fatigue. It could be like their gut, their microbiome. So basically they have constipation or chronic diarrhea, but they think it's their normal. And that's another thing in health. People think it's normal because everybody around them has the same symptoms. But what's common, I repeat this all the time, but what's common, it is not necessarily normal,
Right.
especially nowadays. We have like cancer is common, like heart disease is common, diabetes is type 2 diabetes is common, but is this normal? Is this our new norm? We could go down many rabbit holes with that, but still, what symptoms are common nowadays, it doesn't mean it's normal. Like kind of like even like chronic pain, like past 35 years, I heard that in the locker room like last week in the gym, like my shoulder hurts and now my lower back hurts, but like past 40 years old, that's what everybody experiences, right? He was talking with the buddy. I didn't really intervene. I had my day to go about, and they didn't ask for my opinion, but in my head I was like, this is still the mainstream kind of like narrative, or like this is what the mainstream belief is, that with age it means you lose mobility, you lose comfort, like all these things, but that doesn't have to be normal.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's the same thing on my side when I help women with menopause. It's like they think that it's so normal and okay to feel this way, when in general, you shouldn't be feeling this way. You shouldn't be actually having these symptoms. And if you do, what you can do about it, right? How can you correct it? Which you can. So it's quite interesting to hear that. And I've heard a lot of people also talk about that. People, as you said, with the knowledge and the internet and everything, being really informed, but also confused because there's so much information, right? Like I always say, a diet is a great diet, but what's a diet? Like, are you going to be only on this diet for 2 weeks and then everything goes to shits? You know what I mean? So it's like, how can you implement these nutrition factors into your life so that way it is sustainable, and then you can live a healthy life in a way, right? With the rule of exception where, if you have a family gathering or birthday or something like that, it's okay to eat that cake, right? Because if you don't, then you deprive yourself from these pleasures, and you then later on go into these stuffing your face constantly, and then you beat yourself over the head because you're like, oh my gosh, here it goes. Whew, gone. So yeah.
I see that very often, as you mentioned, and I think like for people it's hard as well, because it's all about like implementing sustainable change. Like it's easy to go like, okay, I'm super ready, or I'm super like have that leverage of, okay, I'm tired, sick and tired of being like in that this or that way, and then go onto these like drastic boot camp ish like diets or like lifestyle change. But is this really sustainable? Like, is
Right.
it sustainable through time? Is it sustainable if you have a social life or family life, when you go eat at your parents-in-law and then they make this, and then you kind of like become the guy that brings his lunch? Some personalities thrive with that, but most people, it's all about like finding balance. And I,
Yes.
I feel it's a journey that ends when you die,
Mhm.
basically. So you got to go through like seasons through your whole life. Sometimes you're going to have, oh, I have this nailed in, I have this very well integrated, until XYZ stress comes up,
Mhm.
or until there's another challenge. And then, oh, this one that was kind of like on cruise control, for example, diet,
Mhm.
but now like, oh, diet, anyway. So it shifts, that's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
And that's the whole point of having some coaching and some support. I think it's a great key when you want to achieve some goals.
Mm. What really also struck me, for example, is when I have a client coming up with certain problems with their health. I find that they want a quick fix. And what I'm trying always to like tell them that, first of all, it's not a quick fix. It's a process. So like with herbal medicine, if they take anything herbally or anything, it takes time. I always say it took you 40 years, for example, to get to where you are with the problems that you're having. So, whatever it is, to basically having it done in 2 weeks or a month. Like, let's say weight loss. Yes, you can lose that weight within a month, right? You can lose probably what, close to 20 pounds or something like that drastically, but you're going to gain that weight back once you stop that. So, again, going back to the 80-20 rule, change your diet, change your thing completely, right? So, like you said, having that help, right? When you come in, they can come and see you and you can guide them through. You can show them, for example, of what they can eliminate, how to read simple ingredients, for example, on the back of the box, right? Because that can also be very confusing, I
Mm-hmm.
find, to a lot of people. So so in your practice, right? Like how, give me like a scenario of when you're working with a client
Mm-hmm.
and they come into you, let's say, with a like weight loss.
Yeah, for sure. Well, people come into me many times for weight loss as a kind of like second kind of like desire, as like I said, like with the regulations in Quebec, like mostly people come in for like chronic pain, but it could be, for example, low back pain, which is very common, very prevalent in the population, and many times they'll have like, for example, other symptoms, like I said, which are non-musculoskeletal, which could be over, they're overweight and everything that comes with it, kind of like, because many times these people, like depending on the level of overweightedness, but fatigue, chronic fatigue, and mood swings, and or lack of concentration, and or blood sugar like fluctuations, poor sleep. I most likely something, if you dig in there, or not digestive related, either like constipation or diarrhea, or anything like heartburn, very common as well. Poor stress response, like they cannot handle stress so much. um, Whatever the symptom is, but let's say like they're overweight, or they need to lose weight, because we all know that visceral fat kind of like really doesn't help with pain. Basically, it kind of like sensitizes you more to pain, so you feel more pain than other like normal, like non-overweight people would feel. And there's a ton of other cascades with the inflammatory response. So that's why, as a chiropractor, even with the regulations in Quebec, like it's super important to me, and it's like a duty, in my opinion, to consider that metabolic component to their neuromusculoskeletal pain.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, the key I always say is to, because when I started my practice, I was like having all this knowledge, and it was super fascinating, and I'm passionate, and I was like, okay, you got to do this, that. But people were like here, like they still drank, for example, like, I don't know, Coca-Cola and
Diet
soda and
Coke.
whatever. Exactly.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, you got to cut out, for example, gluten or dairy. And they were like, what's gluten? Or like, what's a carbohydrate? Or what's a, so you really got to like meet them like one step further, but not 10, because else you're going to
Yeah.
lose them, or they're not going to come back, or you won't like find like kind of like a common point, so you can
Mm-hmm.
bring them towards these steps.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I learned throughout the years as well, and to speak their language as well. That's the whole art, or the therapeutic art of accompanying people towards their journey.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to meet them where they're at, and like bring them one step further. And as you said, it's all about implementing things that are going to be sustainable. And that's what's hard with the human being, changing our ways, changing our habits. Like even me, I'm a creator of habit. Like sometimes like I quit coffee, like my morning coffee recently, and I was like it was more like craving the whole ritual and habit of like doing things, as opposed if I'm like on a trip somewhere else in the world, and I'm not even going to think about it, because I'm already out of my routine. So that's kind of hard first, and then there's the whole emotional component around it, the social component, like my wife's going to eat this and I'm supposed to eat that, what am I going to eat for breakfast? So all these questions come up, like with one thing, let's say cut out processed sugar. Oh, okay, what's processed sugar? You got to get there. And my what I really firmly believe is like, you don't know what you don't know, and patients and clients don't know what they don't know. So our the core of our job is really to educate, like to bring them this information, but in a way that's kind of like, one, digestible, understandable, but also that they can implement like in a very sustainable easiest possible way,
Yeah.
because
So
if
it's not a
you
shock to the system in the way.
yeah, and to their like emotional and the routines and all this. So you try and change one thing, depending, you gauge where they're at. Some I always have some clients or patients that are like alpha type, and I'm gonna go like, okay, you should be doing this and that, and the next week or next month they're gonna come back and everything is implemented and they were like there. But that's not most people. I love I love to work with such clients because they're like, whoa. But most people, like you said, are there because of like 40 years of these little tiny habits, kind of like with finance or like investments, like this composed interest. But that's the same thing. Like you either like every bite you take, every meal you eat, every
Mhm.
little habit, it's going to either take you towards optimal health or declining health. And this compounds over years.
Right.
The beauty is, even though if it has been like 40 years, typically doesn't take 40 years to reverse, though. It
Mhm.
doesn't take like 2 weeks like you said. But it's amazing how the body, when like you take out the interferences and you give them like, give the body what it needs, it's literally magic how like it heals and balances itself with like
Well,
just
I
clearing
think
the way.
our bodies always want to get into the equilibrium, to
Hmm.
the balance of everything. So even though we're bombarding our bodies with so much, processed food and sugars and everything that comes in, our body inside of us, which I think a lot of people don't know, is really trying to fix itself to get to that equilibrium. So, that's why a lot of these emotional eaters and everything, they just don't know how to, deal with that. And not even emotional eaters, but anybody, like they have there's no putting those line or putting these dots together in a way,
Hmm.
right? So like you said, like once you remove, let's say, that gluten or the dairy from your diet, let's say, I always say, give yourself about 4 weeks to see the difference, because that's how quickly actually your
Hmm.
body can change, which is so amazing. Our bodies are amazing. So that will bring me to a question of, what are your common myths or misconception about nutrition when you have clients coming in, and how do you address them?
Well, there's like many of them, of course, and like when people are really like starting from afar, like I feel like there's like even distress around that subject. Of course, I'm going to work with like a coaching, like a different person, like a nutritionist for sure, other coaches, like anybody who are resourceful and like
Mm-hmm.
like with the professional background that can help them where they are. There has to be a personality fit as well, all these things. But yeah, like the things I hear the most, like the first one in a very general way, well, I've already eaten like this, so like, and I've already always been fine. That's one that comes up a lot. Well, until you're not, and then now we got to start the work. That's the same thing. Like I've always been smoking, but I've always always been fine until like you're not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
um but I would say like people many times think, for example, gluten or dairy, for that matter, like the casein protein,
Mm-hmm.
the lactose typically creates more like GI effects, but many times the casein protein and the gliadin gluten, basically, they don't necessarily cause digestive upset. They could cause neurological issues. It could be anything from chronic fatigue to neurological disorganization in like very specific reflexes or activations or inhibition pathways in the brain,
Mm-hmm.
leading to muscle dysfunction, like in very subtle ways, or basically just low back pain. And that's where, like, for me as a chiropractor, chronic low back pain, many times, like to get back to even to your previous question, is going to be like, okay, well, your chronic low back pain, which you've seen many like practitioners for, that's always recurring. It seems to come from my exam and history from your gut.
Mm-hmm.
And here's how we're going to go about it. And there's no recipe, there's no one size fits all. And this is where I'm going to give you them like very tailored plans of action and
Mm-hmm.
corrections that I'm going to do. But many times, like, take out the gluten. And One is that I'm not celiac, or my medical doctor told me I'm not celiac. I passed the tests, but there's so much literature coming out now. Before there wasn't, but still it was a clinical observation of mine and many colleagues that people seem to be sensitive to gluten without like being full blown celiac. And that's one thing. It could be secondary to their chronic inflammation, leading to gut inflammation. So anything that will kind of like be pro-inflammatory or irritant to the GI tract, i.e., gluten, dairy. Many times people will have done like lists of intolerances or sensitivities, but once we fix the gut, it's going to narrow down to maybe more their fundamental ones or none at all, which is cool as well. But that would be amongst the few. People think it's like one thing that's, I don't know if it's a misconception, but people need to be pooping once a day at least. That's a big one.
Very important. Yes.
Yeah, very important. Some people like don't really like that's the first question I asked. One, well, not the first, but one of the no, I'll rephrase that. Not the first question here. Hi, how are you? Are you pooping once a day? But it's more like one on the first visit. That's one of the questions I ask to all my patients. That's how to put it, because it's that important, especially with low back and congestion and all these things. But people like common is not normal, is not necessarily normal. You gotta poop at least once a day. And many people think like soft stools are they're normal, but it's really not, you know. So that's another one that comes up.
Do you use the poop Bristol board?
I don't. I used to have it, and then like it takes a lot of time like to go through that. So depending on the time that I have, like further down like our visits sometimes, but like I just ask about like texture, overall texture and frequency, and then whatever we fix, then they'll report back to me without even me knowing like the consistency of their stools. Are going to be like, oh, the consistency is better, the frequency is better, and like doesn't hurt anymore. I'm not bloated as much, and all these things. The bloating as well is very common, and people tend to think it's normal or don't even notice it. And then when we address a few things, they're like, oh, I have a flat stomach now. Like it's my new normal. So yeah. How about yourself?
Yeah, so what I also learned through the process of not pooping, there was someone that couldn't poop for like a week or so. And through the process of going through finding out what's going on, yes, the diet was also, but that person also was holding on to emotions. So the emotions that she was feeling was also not letting her to relax and go to the bathroom. So that was a whole component of working together to release and release the toxins, but also release the trauma or release whatever she was holding on to. Yeah, so it was quite interesting to see that. And again, how everything is so connected, which we don't, as humans, don't realize this is what it is.
Very true. Very true. I see that a lot as well. From either like chronic constipation or the opposite, chronic diarrhea. Many times there's a huge emotional component, like you said, and now it's been like even more documented in the literature as well. Like there's IBS, like irritable bowel syndrome, but with like which classically was more like diarrhea and like, but now like there's the IBS-C, which is with constipation as a symptom. But yeah, keep that in mind for our listeners for sure. There's many times emotional component.
What's your thought on it's not the wheat, but it's the glyphosate?
I think it's a valid one. I don't think we'll ever be able to figure it out like fully, because I think glyphosate like plays a big role on many things, like the gut lining barrier for one thing. But then again, glyphosate has other effects like on the liver, for example, and other systems which can affect the upper digestion and in turn like create like more inflammation in the lower gut tract. So is it kind of like the chicken or the egg? But like I would say like there's also like the hybridization of wheat, which makes it like more higher in gluten like throughout the years and all these things. So there's many theories about like why gluten is so inflammatory to the body. There's also some hypotheses that I found, like regarding like EMF, so electromagnetic fields and
Right.
radio frequency from cell phones and all these things that would sensitize or open up the gut brain barrier, but also like
Right.
the leading to leaky gut and more sensitivity to these things. So I think it's really a multi factor thing.
Yeah,
But
there's a
yeah,
lot
it's
of
definitely,
layers
it
to
can
it.
definitely play a role. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, for example, for myself, I was totally fine with like organic wheat.
Hmm.
And then let's just say at a certain age of my life, I hit that barrier where I was like, what's going on? I noticed like a bunch of like redness around here,
Mm.
around my hairlines. I was itchy all over the place, and not all over the place, but like all over my body. And yeah, it just, as a holistic nutritionist myself, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to remove all that stuff because I was just playing around just to see where I was at. And I'm not allergic, but I'm sensitive to wheat.
Hmm.
Right away, it's a delay reaction that I get, probably about 4 to 6 days that I get the reaction when I eat gluten, or if I eat anything with gluten, let's say in the restaurant or anything like that, I react. It's a slower process, but I will react right away. Yeah. So.
Well, that's an interesting one, and even to go back to your question about it, like what I find is very different from individual to
Yes.
individual. What I love to do, like in my practice, I use lots of tools, but then again, I will identify like on the patient, some patients it's going to be a sensitivity more to the wheat or lectin, for example, just wheat,
Mhm.
so they're going to be okay on Camus. How do you say that in English? Camus in French.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or spelt, or all these other ones that contain gluten, but
Mhm.
that they won't react. So that could be more to the wheat. And then some people will show more on glyphosate, but then again, I don't think it's because they shouldn't eat anything with glyphosate on it. It might mean like their liver is having a hard time, or any other like of their elimination organs for that matter.
Mhm.
So it could be their
Mhm.
intestines. And other, I will test like more on the gliadin part, like so the gluten. Other people is going to be on other things. So like the cool thing with in my practice, like with many tools that I use, I will really test like with the individual patient. So from
Mm.
my, that's why like from my own observations clinically, I find that it's really on a case by case
Right. Because we
analysis.
are so different.
Yeah.
We all have different
Yeah.
needs. We react to different things differently. I'm talking about food.
Yeah.
So yeah, so for
And the
sure.
cool thing is we can find the individuals way to counter it, in a way like to counter interact it. So if I find that they
Mhm.
have a sensitivity to the wheat protein, or like to dairy or whatever, we're going to see how can we support the body so they can do better on it. Sometimes we just can't. Many times we can help, like I said earlier, like rebuilding the gut barrier and all these other things.
Mhm.
It really depends on their journey and their history and symptoms.
Mm. Yeah, gut health, gut lining is to keep it healthy. It's so important.
Yeah.
I think about 90% of us humans have some sort of gut issues for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and you've talked about stress, how stress, like we we talk about all these foods, but then again, like the stress and the compounded effects of stress on the body, and the hormonal cascade that comes with it, it will definitely play a big role onto the gut. People tend to think, okay, yeah, antibiotics, now that's almost like a fully known thing that will throw off your gut flora, for example. All the food things that we just mentioned, but also like stress. That's one of the most overlooked ones on the effect of like the gut flora, but just our digestion overall.
Mm. We
Hmm.
really do truly have to look at the whole picture of a person than just one particular thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why this work is so beautiful.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, what does a balanced diet looks like to you?
Hmm.
And what components do you believe are essential for optimum health?
Okay. So not for me personally, for like in general, right?
Yes.
Okay, because first and foremost, it varies from individual to individual. But if we're to really like put it down to like a kind of like general rule for everyone, I think there can be many things said about that for sure to start with, kind of like a blueprint, and then like customize it for yourself, depending on genetics, preferences, energy expenditure, and all that. But for me, it's really as least transformed as possible, so as close to its natural state as possible. And one would argue that, like throughout the years, food has changed so much, it's been hybridized and but still try to do your best to like the less ingredients on the list, the better. So if you go into the produce aisle at the supermarket, you're good. Like if it's an orange, it's an orange. If it's salad, so all these things. So the least ingredients as possible, as unprocessed as possible as well. Some people like raw versus cooked. I feel here with the winter, I think it's good to eat cooked food. There could be a debate on some people with that, but I would say like lots of fresh and or cooked vegetables, fruits. I'm okay with nuts and seeds, and I like. Personally, I'm a fan of protein. I feel animal protein is digested better on many levels, and as organic, free range, wild caught and wild sourced as possible. So it looks very much like the paleo diet. I'm not a fan of like dogma regarding diets and food and whatnot, but if you kind of like Google the paleo diet, it kind of like it boils down to unprocessed. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know about you. We didn't speak about that beforehand. I know some people like there's so many schools of thought around it, but for me, like what seems to work great on most patients and clients and myself, and I think it's because it boils down to as unprocessed as possible and nutrient dense foods. And like on the flip side, it kind of like takes off all these ultra processed foods and also like problematic like grains containing gluten and or other stuff like dairy as well for some people. But like I said, from there I will customize or work with the nutritionist to have like something very custom for the client or patient. How about
Yeah, I
yourself?
mean, the options right now are so huge.
Yeah.
You go to supermarkets, for example, if someone cannot consume rice, I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
can substitute with cauliflower rice,
Mm-hmm.
right? And kind of play around with those things like quinoa or uh, buckwheat. I love buckwheat. Or the new thing is when I came back from Nicaragua was sorghum.
Mm-hmm.
Sorghum was a really, really good grain. So people can substitute and they can play around with the foods, and all that stuff. So yeah, yeah. What about supplements? What's your take on supplements?
Well, I use lots of supplements at the clinic for sure, in my life as well, for many reasons. I think in an ideal world where like the Earth is still what it was like many hundreds of years ago, like where the massive agriculture didn't take place, and so many things, we were not as stressed. Like arguably, like one would say, okay, we die like later, we have like different stressors, like there's no tiger chasing us and all that, but now we have all these low level stressors. You could get an email from like
Yeah,
anytime, like
they're constant,
all
right?
these little things with the
Mhm.
artificial light at any time of the day, watching the news. So it's just different, and we're not like built in that way. For example, we're better at handling like massive stressors, like kind of like a short bursts of massive stressors, and then resting for a while. So all these things kind of like over deplete us, the environment, and all these things. So I know like when I always try to catch myself when I over tend to use supplements. Okay, how can I kind of like modulate my life first? But even same thing with patients. The supplements are going to be used to kind of like modulate, like to help therapeutically
Mhm.
while we're trying to make some changes. So to kind of like replete what has been out of balance for many years, and temporarily replete or remodulate, for example, herbs, like as you mentioned before, for the adrenals or the hormones and all this. You got to understand that they're used more therapeutically for a purpose. And once you get there and implement all the habits that will sustain that,
Mhm.
then you won't need them like anymore. Ideally, there are some exceptions to that, of course. Um, so that would be for the herbs. I use almost like nature's medications. I like to say that to modulate some. They're very powerful. For like more vitamins and minerals, same thing, always therapeutically, but some things like are arguably like I said, like with the soil being more depleted and all that, having more stress, it depletes us more of our minerals. So magnesium's a big one, especially in the evening, especially when stressed people, perimenopausal women, or even like full on like menstruating women as well, because of the like birth control and the environment, the toxicity. Like magnesium is a big one that gets depleted. So, but I'm not a recipe guy. But if you're to enter a health food store, never took like many supplements. If you want to try something, try a good quality magnesium. It might help with your sleep, with your stress management, with your energy, so many things, and it's not very expensive. So might as well try that one.
Yeah. Yeah. And also because we live in a country where for 7 months we don't
Yeah,
have the sunshine.
yeah, true. I forgot that one, but for sure,
Vitamin D is
yeah.
so important for us. It's so
Hmm.
important for our overall health.
Yeah, most people come in with their lab work or like their
Mhm.
vitamin D doses, and even though if when they supplement, many times they're barely at the upper range of like being sufficient. So
Right.
yeah, I think it's a big one, and very important fact for the listeners as well. Like the vitamin D absorption from supplements will largely depend on many other nutrients like omega 3s, zinc, magnesium plays a big role in that,
Mhm.
vitamin A as well. But I would say like inflammation will drive like the absorption of it. So like it brings us back to it's very important to like address our health as a whole and go back to those basics, driving that inflammation and most likely driving our needs to these supplements too.
So, what would be your 5 supplements that you would recommend for someone to take or look into it actually if they want to?
Yeah, sure. Well, to
Yeah.
look into it, because I don't really recommend people take 5 supplements like on a necessarily regular basis. If they're taking too many supplements, for me, it's telling like that there's some shortcomings somewhere in their like pillars of health, whether it's
Mhm.
sleep, stress management, or food, like we talked about.
Mhm.
I would say magnesium you might want to look into if you're having a hard time getting to sleep or staying asleep at night. You wake up multiple times. Again, it's not a bulletproof recipe and it's not a one size fits all, but that would be my first. If you want to try a supplement for that, always check with your medical doctor. None of these are medical advice, but check with your professional. But the magnesium is a big one that I find very often. Omega 3s arguably could be a very beneficial one. A good quality though. If you go buy it at Costco, nothing about nothing against Costco. Like I go there quite often for the family shopping and whatnot, but the quality of the supplements. There's qualities there, and like especially the fish oil, it's very fragile. It can become rancid very easily if exposed to light and other conditions. So buy like pay a higher price, but go for quality. That's important. And the dosage, it depends on the weight and all these things, but I would aim for at least like 3 grams of fish oil per day. So sometimes there's going to be a very nice product, but like the amount of EPA, DHA in there is kind of like a bit too small. So you have to take like 10 capsules a day. But I would do like in a general fashion, magnesium, omega 3s, vitamin D, as you mentioned, a good quality vitamin D as well, with ideally vitamin K2 and all these things that you can research on.
Mhm.
The other ones would be more on a as needed basis. Which two would you add to that? I'm curious.
Well, I think a lot of people don't eat enough vegetables and fruits
Hmm.
and lack of vitamin C. So for
Hmm.
me, when I put them on a protocol, it's definitely 3 months of vitamin C, right?
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I find it when I go through with when I read some of my intake forms and stuff like that. A lot of people don't implement. They don't enough. Like we know we need to have at least 7 servings of vegetables. 5 servings of fruit. You, I'm not talking about even adults. I'm talking even
Hmm.
kids don't even
Yeah.
eat that enough, right? So it's like put them on those. put them on the vitamin C, or implement more of the vegetables and fruits for sure. More vegetables than fruits, but yeah, usually it's seasonable as well.
Well, I like
For
that because many times, yeah, for the vitamin C for sure, but also like what people try to tend to underestimate is that like this variety of fruits and vegetables, they're all like these prebiotics. This is what's going to dictate how your microbiome is going to develop. People are very fond of probiotics and all these things, but the best probiotic like naturally that you can get is eat the widest variety of vegetables possible. This will really foster a good gut microbiome. And I even like to see it as a challenge. Whenever I see something like I've never tried at the grocery store, at the farmer's market, you try it. Not only is it a challenge to cook it, now not so much with ChatGPT and all these things. You can ask like how to cook like in the best way with all the tools that you have, but still see it as a challenge to and kind of like as a perk of, oh, my microbiome is going to get more diverse if I eat this thing that I'm not used to eat. Because as you said, people eat few and they always eat like the carrots and the broccoli and like, the ones that most people will tend to know. But be adventurous and try some new things. It's going to be beneficial for your microbiome. So yeah,
yeah,
make it fun, but
no,
it
I
healthy
agree.
as
Yeah,
well.
I used to get a basket from a local farmer, and sometimes they would throw in things
Yeah.
in there that I had no idea what it
Yeah.
was. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh well, I'm just gonna chop it up and put it in my soup, or put in my stew, or make my kids eat it.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Don't let
my
it go to waste.
right,
It's
right,
going to be beneficial for sure.
yeah.
See it, yeah. See in the
So my new
with that
thing,
regard.
yeah, my new thing is Jerusalem artichokes, because they
Oh,
grow everywhere here, and they're so great. Help you heal your gut, for
hmm.
example, right? Like what I do is I chop them up. Um, they have a very distinct taste, so I don't make the French fries anymore because my kids wouldn't eat it. But what I do is I dry them up in the oven, and I grind them into powder form, and then I keep them in the fridge in a jar. And then every time I make a smoothie for my kids, I will add a teaspoon or 2 teaspoon, whatever it is, into it, and I'm like, here it goes, eat
That's
it.
nice.
Yeah, because they can get pretty tricky. Like they're older now, right? So they're like, what did you put in that soup, mom? You don't need to know.
That's a good bag of tricks, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I was always that kind of mom that always trick the kids, because they're like, why don't we eat the zucchini? Well, you're gonna eat that zucchini today, no matter what.
Or perhaps you already ate it and you don't know.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So as parents, we do so many funky things with our kids. um how important is mindful eating?
Mm. I love that. Like, well, I think it's super important. I think it's very overlooked, and it's one of the things that will again mess up your gut microbiome. Like, people are sometimes like, "Oh, what's wrong? What am I eating that's wrong, or what am I doing, or what supplement do I need?" But many times you gotta chew your food. uh, like there's a saying, like one of my mentors I heard say it was like, chew your liquids and drink your food. So that basically means, like, chew it until it's super liquid. Even in the morning, sometimes in a rush with the family, these days I do smoothies, but I still like don't blend them fully. So I still have to chew it. Well, I've always chewed even the liquids because it's
Mm-hmm.
still kind of like
Mm-hmm. Thick.
dense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thick, exactly. And you gotta chew on it, and this will stimulate the release of enzymes and all these things that, like, digestion really starts in your mouth. That's one thing. And when you're in a rush and you're not mindful, you tend not to, you just chug it down,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's liquid or food. But then again, if you're in a rush or like distracted, if you're into like this fight or flight mode, kind of like running from a tiger, you're in sympathetic dominance. That's what we call like running from a tiger. Like, all your hormones are geared towards adrenaline production and fighting or fleeing, basically running away. So that's the whole opposite of being into digestion, resting, repair. making love. That's all the parasympathetic. So this is where you heal. This is where your gut gets better. This is where you absorb better your nutrition. So your blood's going to be directed towards those organs. So if you're into adrenaline while you're eating, your digestion's gonna not gonna be as optimal as if you're relaxed, mindful. Also, there's something I mentioned like the enzymes while tasting, but also like smelling the food. It will definitely release many like hormones as well, the oxytocin, the appreciation, the gratitude, but also it will prime your digestive system as well to digest better. For example, my dog, but it's the same thing with humans. Like if you haven't eaten in a while and you enter this home where it feels like it smells so good, you're going to start salivating. So that's these kinds of reflexes that we tend to overlook, but that are so crucial before even thinking about supplement or like in conjunction with supplement or a therapeutic process. But if you take all the supplements in the world or all these like fancy modalities and you forget to do all these little things, as I mentioned, like the compounding effect of all this, the interest compounded, all these little habits that we gotta, like even myself, I'm saying this at the moment, I'm like, did I do this morning? Oh, I might have been in a rush. So it's constant practice, like even like when you know all this, but it's super, these little things that are super important. So yeah, mindful eating, prime importance.
Yeah, I implement that in my own family as well
I
as
love
with
it.
my clients as well, because it's so important to actually sit down. I will wake up my kids early enough for them to sit down and eat their proper meal. Now, some of my teenagers, they're like, they don't eat breakfast because it's not cool to eat breakfast, or not eat any meals during the day because when they're in high school, it's not cool to eat.
Wow.
So they're like, we're not bringing lunch or anything like that. Or I say, well, I mean, warm up at school. And they're like, Mom, I don't feel like taking rice to school. So I'm stepping away myself right now because
Yeah.
I'm like, they need to figure this out.
Yeah.
Um, it really bothers me, for example, because I know what it does to their body. But at the same time, I think this is a time where they need to learn,
Hmm.
certain things that play for their own health.
Yeah, it's a
So
great learning opportunity for them for sure. Like
that's
by
it.
by experience. That's what it
Absolutely.
seemed to choose anyhow. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, eh? How do you? Oh, actually, what advice would you give to someone, or whoever is listening, or your
Hmm.
clients that are looking for to start meal planning,
Hmm.
and how can they contribute to, or how this can be contribute to better nutrition?
Mm. I think it's one of the biggest things actually, because in this like fast-paced world, like it's easy to go and grab takeout, even if you're trying to choose the healthier options. Still not going to be like the highest quality ingredients, like the oils, for example, it's going to tend to be more like seed oils or like vegetable oil or canola oil, and like of very low quality and oxidized and all that, as opposed to if you cook at home with extra virgin and olive oil and all these other good fats. And that's just talking about the oils, but that's one thing. But cooking, that there's something like alchemical, like really like with alchemy, like cooking, like you choosing the right vegetable in the pile of vegetables at the grocery store to bringing it home and then preparing it. There's something very sacred about that, and the conscious eating, that's the conscious cooking. It kind of like preps you and like puts that gratitude in there. But I get that people are rushed in in different ways, but I think like it's really planning for success, because the meal prepping, like if you do it like with the family, for example, you're kind of like sharing this nice moment as well, infusing your food with it, but also just like planning for success as opposed to failing or being shorthanded and being like in a rush. Oh, I'm going to grab some takeout and then, or like grab some fast food because you're in a pinch, and then like it kind of like throws this kind of like wheel of like having weird cravings the next day or the next meal, and then your blood sugar being off because you ate something that's not in your habits. So I think it's really planning for success. So yeah, and having control over your food. So I think it's super important. My tips would be just schedule that moment, and at least you don't have to make the meals for the whole week, but at least, like, I don't know if it's lunch that you're more in a rush, but well, cook like lunches for everyone for the whole week, and you're gonna have more success that way.
Yeah, yeah, I think planning is great because it kind of gives you an idea, not only to actually, if some people are on a budget, right, and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff, kind of helps you to kind of go and do the groceries and kind of prepare of, okay, this is what I need to get to prepare certain foods, right? Like I usually kind of, I don't want to say I'm staying with the basic, but I am usually staying with the basics. So like,
Yeah.
either rice, quinoa, um, sorghum. It's a new thing. When I came back from Nicaragua, I started integrating that into our diets. What else do I do? Very rare that we have like pasta. Like, I mean, if my family does, I'll do like a zucchini, like, spirals when I use that for my meals. But we also do eat a lot of leftovers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like wasting food. So if there's something that's left over, I'll create something for lunch the next day, kind of thing. So it's like it's always reused. I just don't like throwing food away, even though I have
Nah.
chickens. I just can't.
I
um,
understand.
but yeah, but it's that whole idea of sitting and kind of planning for what is coming ahead. Yeah, which I really really love.
Yeah.
Um, what does hydration play in overall health?
Oh, that's another primary thing. Like, it's one of the
Mhm.
pillars of health, in my opinion. Most people are
They're
dehydrated.
so
Even
dehydrated,
that's
right?
one of the first things that is overlooked. And I ask all my new patients, and even like through their process, like I re-ask again, and it's of utmost importance. Like, even like from a musculoskeletal standpoint, you can feel like the muscles. Like being more tight, like moving in that as well. The fascia can like can
Mhm.
create like adhesions and all these things. You're gonna feel it and people are gonna feel more inflamed. But there's I don't remember the stats, but like a 1% dehydration, level can affect the brain very quickly into like mental sharpness, fatigue, exhaustion, and all these things. So it's crucial. It's one of the basics. Like, and most people come into the clinic and they're like, yeah, exactly. And then you see me drinking same thing like throughout the thing. The goal is really to carry water. If you don't carry water, you're going to forget. Your body's going to adapt. Of course, we're like meant for survival and all these things. But I would recommend to carry water. Like, there's tons of calculations that you can do. Like, some people will say, like, sometimes I'm like super easy, like 1 liter per 50 pounds of body weight, but depends. Like, other is going to be half your body weight in pounds, in ounces of water. That's a more like a permissive calculation. Another one that my wife posted not so long ago, like while researching more, it was 30 milliliters, like, so 1 ounce per kilogram, I think. So 2 liters at least,
Per
from
day.
there, depending on your weight, energy expenditure, sweating, season,
Yeah,
do whatever, and be mindful of anything that dehydrates you as well. So alcohol and coffee
coffee,
and
right?
caffeine,
Every
period. Yeah.
every cup of coffee you drink, you have to replenish this with two
Yeah.
cups of water.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
I say that too.
Um, what about, like, I know drinking water is great,
Hmm.
but what about adding electrolytes to your water
Hmm.
or sea salt, like
Yeah.
real sea salt, not table
Yeah.
salt?
Yeah, of course. I say that very often as well. It's very trendy these days, like the electrolytes. I wouldn't say like drink electrolytes all day. And there's also, depending, some people, like, for example, on a keto diet will need more electrolytes to compensate. Like, there's specific situations, but with an overall, like, I would start with saying just drink more water. For people who drink their like regular amount of water, who report back to me like, oh, I'm always going to the bathroom, or it could be your body that's adapting. It could be your adrenals that are like need some attention, or it could be basically that you need to add more electrolytes. It comes back to the quality of their water as well, because sometimes people will use just tap water. That could be like the low hanging fruit. Just
Mhm.
buy a filtration system or get some source water or whatever to upgrade your quality of the water.
Mhm.
From there, if they've done this upgrade, sometimes they get reverse osmosis, but then again, without like re-adding minerals. So it's a case by case basis, but I would say for sure, at least once a day, you want to replenish your minerals. For me, I salt my food kind of like a lot, or like I put lots
Mhm.
of good. I have like 5 kinds of salt at home, like
Mhm.
maybe 4, but still like around that number, because there's a an occasion for every salt, depending on the taste. And when you get into that rabbit hole of salts,
Yes.
there's so many flavors, texture, crystals. I love salt
Yeah.
basically. So for me, I don't really add it to my water, and I have some well water, so it's already like more minerals. So I
Mhm.
don't, but I still do electrolytes here and there. I love it,
Mhm.
especially sometimes in the evening. I'll get like a little craving of food or like after dinner, and then I'll go grab some electrolytes, and I'm good. And that will
Mhm.
make me skip like the um, evening eating that's so
Mhm.
detrimental to sleep and all that. Or sometimes I will encourage people to do it in the morning, like a good like glass of water with some either a pinch of sea salt, a good quality, like you mentioned. Um, there's tons of there. I don't have like a specific
Yeah.
recommendation, but or like some good quality electrolytes, but not to do it like some people will do electrolytes with all their drinks.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, that's not
I'm
good
not a fan.
either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that either. But I always say hydration is so important no matter
Hmm.
what. Just keep on drinking. I mean, there's you don't if you don't like water, it's okay. Still drink herbal teas as not as long as there is no caffeine in it. Um, Replenish that, but plain water is the best water that we
Yeah.
can.
It
Mhm.
really depends where the people's at. Like you said, some people are like, I just don't like the taste and like that.
Mhm.
Everything it boggles my mind. Like, wait, you don't like water? But still, people sometimes they're coming from afar. So I mean,
Yeah,
like for them, like herbal tea, great. We'll
yeah.
talk in three
It
months, six
works and
months,
it's
or
perfect.
2 weeks. Yeah,
Right,
exactly. So
right.
any improvement, like progress over perfection. I repeat that all the time. So people are like, oh, 3 liters really there's no way, so they're like next homework, like give me something
Yeah,
else. But
yeah.
yeah,
You
if
got
you
the
drink like
part
2 glasses, it's going to be better than like one, so start
right.
with that. Yeah.
Right, exactly. What about kids?
Hmm.
How do you help, or what kind of advice would you give parents to either install healthy habits for children and implement water for children? Because
Yeah.
you have a child, I
Yeah.
have kids, and my kids went through the process of like birthday parties and things like that. And my kids never really drank juices until about age 5 or so. And even now, like they're almost teenagers and they all drink water like crazy. Like they have these, I think, close to 2 liter bottles filled up with water and they drink it like crazy. Um, but I find that there's a lot of juices and people
Hmm.
are like, oh, here's your apple juice or here's your punch juice and stuff like that. Like how, or again, what advice would you give to parents to kind of switch that for these kids to help them down the road, with their health, right?
Yeah, I think it's a twofold thing. For sure with the water, like I'll start by saying that like you gotta lead by example. So I think like from there, like up until a certain age, all you can do is model like by doing it for yourself and inspire them from like either what they see or they see you doing and all this. So they're gonna model, like children are like that. Then again, like mine is only 3 year old. We'll see. Like I might have more, more advice when they get to the teenage years. But then again, they will learn like your example of like having lunch and all this. At one point they will want to experiment on their own, and I think it's part of life. But if you've taught them some good bases, they kind of like have this reference point on how they're going to feel if they skip lunch, if they skip dinner, or they skip water. And then they're going to be like, oh yeah, it's cool, but like I don't feel as well as when I used to drink water. So they're going to adjust. They're not, like they're smart kids. They just want to feel, everybody wants to feel ideal. So if they see the contrast, more power to them. They're going to be like, oh, you know what, it really helps me to have lunch or drink water. Okay, so that's the first thing. The thing about juice is, yeah, of course it's super available everywhere, even like the fruit pouches that I see like with the for little ones. I think people don't know. I think people say like, oh, a juice box is good. Like it's what did you put in the lunch box? There's always a juice box there, and people don't realize the amount of sugar that's in like processed fruit juices. And since kids move a lot, since kids kind of like don't become fat, well, it's changing, but tend to not gain fat even if though like they eat a lot of stuff from energy expenditure and all that. Um, People tend to think it's okay. It's what you do with kids. You give them juice and like candy and like all these little things, and they kind of like reproduce what they liked when they were kids, like from adults giving them candy, and they kind of like relive that emotional thing. That's a
Mm.
whole other component. But I just think first and foremost, people don't realize that it's kind of like giving them soda, basically. Okay. Maybe perhaps with a few vitamins. I think juice, like, I wouldn't go crazy like on like sometimes we have like we bought some organic grape juice the other day for like someone told us like it was kind of like helping more like folk medicine but like for gastro prevention and all that, and I just bought some for, and I drank it like we serve little glasses, but like all these little like these huge glasses even for adults, like the orange juice is a big one for breakfast.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I would say people just tend not to know like the effect, and they don't seem to see the effect. But I, like many kids, I don't see kids much anymore because like my practice is already full and I
Mhm.
focus on my area of expertise, which is more
Right.
with adults. But like I still see kids of my patients, and many times they come with ADD, ADHD, and like one of the first things, and I saw Dr. Mark Hyman post something like a week or two ago on that, like the 70% of the kids, like when they like with ADD or ADHD, when they took out like all the processed sugar and other foods, 70% of them like had marked like significant like improvement of their symptoms.
Mhm.
So people just they don't know what they don't know, and then they kind of like reproduce what was giving. Like I remember when I was a kid, like these little plastic pouches with like yellow or bright
Yep.
blue, like so I think it's just like a mindless thing, and also there's an industry behind it. So without like being like no ill intentions, but I just think that it's kind of like the thing, like you give kids juice, it must
Mhm.
have some, like it comes from fruit, right?
That's what they told me.
So like, and this is just like, I'm not against, like fresh pressing juice, like once in a while and having like a good organic, like you
Mhm.
take some apples that are overly ripe and you just juice them. Sure, but it's going to take you a while to do it. There's going to be labor involved, and you're not going to like drink like as much as you could, or go to the farmers market having all these like fresh pressed juice. Awesome, enjoy it. It's nature's treat, but it's
Right.
not like a staple. That's the
Yeah.
difference, I would
Yeah.
say.
It's again, it's the 80-20 rule in a
Yeah,
way, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'd rather have you like drink like a glass of juice than having like a soda.
Right.
But if you do it like every day, multiple times a day, and you're starting to have symptoms, that's the other thing. Like if
Mhm.
everything's going the way that you want, or like your child's like not having any issues until he or she develops some, that's the other discussion.
Mhm.
But I think the moderation thing is kind of like out of perspective. Like
Mhm.
moderation is not once a day.
Yeah.
uh, so if you're having a fruit juice once a week, I don't think that's the issue
Yeah, I don't
with
think so
anyone.
either. But I
Yeah,
mean, worst case scenario, what you can do is dilute it with water,
yeah,
especially
that's a
once
good
the
trick.
young kids, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good trick. Like for like example, if he wants juice, or with at some friend's house, or like the parents-in-law, and he wants some orange juice, we're just gonna pour a little and just
Yeah.
dilute it with water, and he likes this just fine. He's super happy that he has a lot of
That's
juice, and
it.
yeah.
And they
I
won't
don't
know
know
it's
how it works with teens though. Yeah, you
they
might
know
be, yeah,
better.
you might
The
want to be
parents,
more sneaky. Yeah.
the parents won't be able to trick them. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What about that's another one big one for me when I like my two boys play football
Hmm.
here in Gatineau, and I see all these kids drinking all these artificial electrolytes.
It depends on which artificial ones. It depends on so many things. Like
Mm.
the more mainstream ones tend to. So it's a case by case, but like I'll look at the ingredients and just try to replace them like with like if they come to ask me, of course, else they can do whatever. But I mean, like I would replace with a more healthy alternative, for example. There's tons of them out there. And then again, you got to look at the ingredients. And like you said, it's not always easy from like someone who's not into all these things to discern within a good one and a bad one. The one thing I'm not fond of is too much sugar. Same thing with the fruit juices. Like these things are loaded with sugar. It could be good for, like, for example, like a marathon runner for various reasons that we're not going to get into. But for kids who are just basically like, even though they're working a lot and expending a lot of energy, I don't think that much sugar is that beneficial for them. Like the electrolytes good, but like in these mainstream ones, like yeah, it's not the best profile. I'll say it that way. So I try and change, like, well, even like coconut water or like something still sugary, but like with a better profile of like electrolytes would be good, or just plain like water with a little bit of fruit juice if you want some carbohydrates in there, but not as much. And there's tons of like homemade electrolytes drink or like Gatorade replicas that you can make, which might be much more healthy for your kid for sure.
Coconut water. I love coconut
Yeah.
water.
Yeah,
Sounds
there's
good.
also like tree like sap water like from maple trees in Canada, which is
Yeah.
kind of cool and very local. So that could
Yeah,
be
that's true.
something that
Support
works
your
as well.
locals. That's
Yeah, yeah.
right. So, on this note, what would be your final piece of advice for someone who's looking to improve their nutrition and just overall health?
Yeah, well, I love this one. I really like. I mentioned it a few times, like progression over perfection, and just little by little, keep like educating yourself. And although there's like overwhelming sources of like information, you can always try and validate it. Like try and implement it in your life. If you're not sure, of course, ask your medical doctor or a health professional or a coach,
Mhm.
and see if it fits for you or not, because it can get confusing quite fast, and it can be semi dangerous if you go down like extreme routes for sure. So always ask your health practitioner. But I would say just experiment with yourself and try and learn more and more. And although like it can become overwhelming, just do little by little. And above learning all these new things, just implement them, because you can have all the knowledge in the world, but it's applied knowledge that you want. So you want to like, oh, I have to drink XYZ amount of water and like buy the new water filter and all these little things, but you still drink like 3 glasses a day.
Yeah.
Start like getting like a little mark, and then when you get there, optimize it even more, or get onto the next weakest link in your health. And that's why like working with any health
Mm.
practitioner will definitely take off the guessing game and the overwhelm, and guide you through your own individual needs and priorities, and save you a lot of time, frustration, headaches, money, and
Mm.
yeah, efforts. So that would be it.
Yeah, beautiful. I love it. And I always say it too, health and nutrition, it's a journey.
Yeah,
It's a journey to discover. It's a journey of, really connecting with how you feel. It's like whenever we put in our mouth, how does it make you feel at the end of the day? Right? So,
very good one.
Maxim,
Yeah,
thank
thank you
you
so much.
so much. I really appreciate this conversation and you coming on. Lots of interesting knowledge. And again, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It was a
You're
pleasure.
welcome.